Now, let's move to this other matter, and it has to do with the Ghana Bar Association issuing a statement after doing some rounds. They have visited some of the courts in the country, and as we speak, I am aware that the Ghana Bar Association executive, they are somewhere in another part of the country, and they are doing the same inspection. They issued a statement, and I just want to read a portion of it and then bring my guests to discuss the issue. They say that the National Executive of the GBA, on its annual tour of the regions, was met with a rude awakening on the appalling, inhuman and degrading circumstances in which some justices of the High Court, Circuit Court, and District Court are compelled to work and live. The National Executive were conducted round the living quarters of some of the judges, and it was a sorry sight. There were damaged doors, windows, ceiling, tiles, leaking roofs, broken sewage systems. The houses were in a general state of disrepair, which does not befit the residence of members of the judicial arm of government. In other places, reptiles crept into the bungalows because of the overgrown environment. I'm not making light of it, but it's, tickles me. Equally regrettable is the condition of the working environment. There were cracked walls, leaking roofs, poor sanitation, lack of running water, and broken down air conditioners and other infrastructure. Court recording systems have all broken down, forcing judges to revert to longhand as a way of recording, thereby frustrating the speedy adjudication of cases. The security of court documents is compromised because of lack of appropriate storage facilities. They speak about all other issues and come to say that it is unfortunate that the monies that were supposed to be advanced to the judicial, the judiciary had not or had been in arrears for about one whole year, over a year. And the internally generated funds that they are entitled to only 15% of that. They are making an appeal to the president as a matter of urgency to get Parliament to ensure that the internally generated funds, the judiciary is entitled to 75% of it instead of the 15%, and the monies that have not been released should be released because, again, some of the high courts, Kumasi and elsewhere, appeal courts, are unable to sit. You can imagine what the implications are for the justice system in the country. You are a lawyer, you practice in the course of this country. What they have said, is it reflective of what you see in some of the courts that you visit?
I like the tenor of your question. In some of the courts, yes. Not all the courts. You see, this statement for me it has the effect of pitching the judiciary against the executive. Why am I saying this? These matters that you are talking about predate, and they predate this regime. And
I say that's a shame. If these have been
yes,
there for
it's a
this
weakness.
long
It's a
and
weakness.
they've not been taken care of, that's a shame.
It's a weakness.
It's a failure of leadership.
Yes, entire leadership of this country. But you hear the tone of the letter, and it appears the attack is on the executive, as if to say the executive has deliberately targeted the judiciary. And that is not the facts of the case. As we speak, almost all the MDAs, ministries, departments, agencies have not received their releases. I just spoke to somebody within the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General Department, and they tell me that they've not also received their subventions since 6 months down the line. They've not received. So
okay,
it is not as if...
Do me this little favor. I have Richard Kojonyako, Joy News' correspondent in the Cape Coast, in the Central Region. That's one of the places that the GBA visited. And we want him, he's done just a little round. We want him to tell us what he has seen independently. What can he tell us? Because as you know, the Judicial Secretary is contesting some of the things that the GBA has claimed. Richard, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning, Samson.
Okay, tell us, where did you go and what did you see?
Well, Samson, I went to the Cape Coast High Court, the Appeals Court, and the Circuit Court. They are all housed in one very huge structure. And it is sited close to the Cape Coast Castle, very close to the ocean. At the time I visited the place, I saw two painters busily painting the structure around 11 a.m. The structure itself has not been painted for a long time, so it's not all the structure that had been painted. They had done some, and there were some that had not been painted. So many of the louver blades have been removed, and others are off. Some of the wires were hanging loosely. I saw a lot of malfunctioned air conditioners. And you see, because of the proximity of the structure to the sea, there were also a lot of the things that were fast corroding and rusting. And in the courtroom themselves, there were a lot of louver blades that have been broken down. The fans that hang in the rooms have suffered rust and make a lot of noise when turned on during proceedings. There are also a lot of cracks and crevices. You know, there are some places that were left with some water. I don't know whether it's as a result of the rains that recently set in. After that place, I also visited some of the residents of the judges. Most of them stay at the second and the third ranges in Cape Coast, and some of the places were overgrown with weeds. The structures in which they live have not been painted over a decade or some decades, because I spoke with some residents who live around the area, and that was what they told me. They told me that in the past, the Public Works Department, the PWD, used to take care of the place, but now it's no more, and so that is really the situation on the ground.
Thank you very much, Richard Kojonyako. And on the back of the Judicial Secretary, you know, seeking to deny some of these reports, I had some of the clerks within the courts actually calling me to give me some of the information, and I am familiar with some of the court. I don't know the last time that the Judicial Secretary, for example, saw the courtroom at, for example, at the Cocoa Affairs area, where the last time he saw Court 7, that's the Circuit Court 7, the last time he went there when it was raining. That place, I can tell you, it floods. It doesn't leak, it floods. Again, if you look at, for example, the District Court 4, that is the Accra Central and La District Magistrate Courts. District Court 4 leaks. It's difficult. They are unable to sit when it rains. So some of these are actually facts. I want to be sure of the specifics that he's denying. And as you can see, I took some photograph, and you can see this is a very dilapidated structure. Some of the windows are all out, and you can see the breakage, the wear and tear. Now, move on with your analysis.
It's a general problem as a nation that we have, which is the lack of maintenance. The lack of maintenance of our buildings and our public places is what we are seeing in the judiciary sector. So it is not as if the judiciary has been targeted by the executive and is making life difficult for them.
But is that what the GBA is saying?
That is the tone. That's how I see it, the tone of their statement.
Is the country not aware, or have we not taken, as they say, judicial notice of the fact that government is unable to pay a lot of agencies and ministries what they require to be able to work?
And that is why I'm saying that when you look at the tone, the exigencies of the time has not been taken into consideration by the tone of this letter. The exigencies of the time. You see?
Which are what?
Challenges financially. These exigencies are what, for me, is causing some of this. And it's not only targeted at the judiciary. And I'm saying that these problems don't exist in the judiciary. They exist. But you see, when you speak to the judicial secretary, he also has another version. But you are practicing there, I also practice there. The whole Cocoa Affairs building is a colonial relic. Adjacent to it is a new court complex.
Magnificent.
Magnificent. Very soon, we'll be moving in there. And so it isn't as if there are no attempts to address the problems. There are attempts. And I would have expected the GBA, my own association's statement, to acknowledge that edifice and say that very soon we'll be moving in there. So I have no difficulty with they pointing out to the general public the problems that exist in there. But the tone of their letter seeks to suggest that government has reneged, government has done nothing. Your correspondent just told you that some work is going on at the Cape Coast court. And so the statement which seeks to pitch the judiciary against the executive must be discarded.
I see. And a friend of mine to Kwabnado is pointing me to the High Court in Tema. He says you should go and see how that place leaks. Kuku, the question is, what sort of justice can people look forward to find in such places? Justice dispensed by judges who apparently are suffering injustices.
Well, I would expect judges, in spite of such circumstances, to still deliver justice according to law and the evidence that is brought before them. That is what I would expect.
And someone will say that will affect their psyche, that if you are sleeping in a reptile-infected environment and having your roof leaking, you may not have the composure to put yourself in a good order to be able to come and do a good job.
Then ask for excuse duty. Don't go to work. Don't go and sit in judgment of an issue you cannot deal with according to law and according to the evidence brought before you. And this is not to underestimate the environment that is really affecting efficiency and effective delivery of justice. That's not what I meant. But I wanted to lay the emphasis there first, because once you are a judge and you take up a case is brought before you, you move from your house where the reptiles are to the courtroom which is the roof is leaking. You knew all that, but you knew that you were going to deal with a case based on law and according to evidence before you. The
frustrations of recording in shorthand, writing when, recorders could be available to take all of those things.
I don't want to create the impression as if I'm underestimating the points you are making. Right. But I think I first wanted to put the substantive premise out, that regardless of the environment, which is not enabling, and I concede, that should not undermine the judge's own view of the law and understanding or appreciation or estimation of the evidence that is brought before him.
To live by the oath to do justice to all manner of persons without ill will or affection, without fear or favor.
That is the point I'm making, that should not be compromised by the negative environment within which you work. Otherwise, don't go to work, because you don't go and deliver injustice because the environment is not enabling. Why? Who is then the victim? Not just you, the judge, who is suffering that negative environment, but the person you are putting in jail or ruling against because of those negative environments. I just wanted to lay the emphasis first. That's why I see the emphasis. But that is not to exclude my feelings for the real situation that you are putting before us. But you see, a certain element of doubt has been cast on all this by the Judicial Secretary's intervention. And that worries me. It worries me to the extent that there's an apparent lack of consultation and coordination. The bar seriously speaks for the bench, especially in many instances, since the bench usually are, quiet and silent on some of these things.
They are taking an oath not to go public.
So it is a convention. I believe you know that. You know better than I do, that the bar speaks for the bench. And this is a very noble exercise. The bar is out there. They are toying. They are not sitting in their bedrooms and coming up with some allegations or reports. They are out there. Your reporter has just vindicated some of the reports. But I thought, well, fine. Since you are speaking for me and since we are virtually in the same boat, I would have expected a certain level of consultation and coordination so as to have a consolidated position and deliver that to the appropriate authorities, both the House of Parliament and the Executive. So I'm a bit worried about the mode of operation.
Right.
and not the concerns that the bar has raised. It's unfortunate that there are aspects of their concerns that the Judicial Secretary has disputed.
Right.
Okay, and that again, if the consultation had come, that would not have happened, in my candid opinion.
Okay.
No.
Now, Bernard, tell me, when you hear that there are places, their homes are overgrown with weeds, that's when I look at it and ask myself, why? What's that? I live in a place and I allow it to be overgrown with weeds. Is it that they are feeling that they shouldn't use their pocket money to take care of that, or what?
I was just going to start from that. I don't know how you were able to read my mind, but I find portions of the statement really ridiculous. That you live in an environment, you want somebody to come and clean it. You are too big to just clean your own surroundings. I'm sure that obviously it will be great for all of us to at least clean our environments. If you are a judge, if you are even a president, and you allow your environment to be overgrown.
The president should have gone with the frontage of the Flagstaff House.
In fact, there's a very senior lawyer, upon reading this, said, very harshly, that, look, let me tell you the truth. Some of them do not deserve beyond that. They don't deserve better than that.
So I think that some portions of the statements really ridiculous. But I can also admit that for every Ghanaian that have moved, not just the judiciary, but most of our public buildings, most of our public places, they are just left to collapse. The reason is that we have an attitude that I think...
Anti-maintenance culture.
No, was infested. We've been infested by a long history that possibly we have to all take a collective effort at trying to overcome. If you take the history of the struggles that eventually brought us independence, it is that you have to do everything to frustrate the colonial government. Government was seen as different from the people. Government was seen as belonging to the white man. And so whatever you did in order to ensure that the government did not function well, don't weed your environment. Go to office and take newspapers and read. Go to office at 9 o'clock and possibly by 11 you are going for lunch, and come back to office at 3 o'clock and start packing by 4 o'clock you are leaving. That is the kind of mentality that existed in order to ensure that the colonial government did not succeed. When we gained independence, we still look at the colonial government as something distant, as something belonging, or government belonging to somebody and not for us. So our attitude towards work has not changed since that time. And so for me, it is that kind of mentality that has affected most of the things that we do. Well, you see that we put up a new building, and even in the construction, if you check most of the new buildings, most of the new constructions that we have done, you do construction today, and it gets deteriorated than constructions that were done some 30, 40 years ago. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Because we are still seeing that, look, we have to do shoddy jobs so that we can get more jobs to be done or what have you. And I think that it is that mentality that has affected us. If the judiciary is speaking for themselves, yes. But I also agree with Kweku. If the Ghana Bar Association is seen to be speaking for the justices, the judiciary secretary is also for the justices. So how come that they are at loggerheads or they disagree? It means that these people are sitting at their corner and they are issuing statements, and this person is also sitting at his corner and is also issuing counter statements. Whose interests are they protecting? Are they protecting that of the executive, that of parliament, or who? Parliament has a role to play. The executive has a role to play. And the judiciary itself has a role to play in this matter. That our courts are not good. I'm sure that we also have seen within the ministries that what has been described as the Atamils courts complex is springing up. Maybe it has delayed, but obviously we see that there is an effort at ensuring that our judiciary, at least they get places that are decent so that they will be able to conduct their work in an environment that is serene. This is just in Accra, but we need to go beyond Accra. You need to go to the regions. You need to go to
That's what they have done. Yeah, and they are still doing.
Yeah, so we should expand. That we delayed in putting up these structures does not mean that nothing is being done about it. Something is being done about it. We should appreciate what is being done before we come with the huge condemnation that the Ghana Bar Association has come with. I think that it would have been fair, it would be intellectually proper to acknowledge the contributions and the things that is being done or are being done to ensure that we are able to overcome some of the shoddy situations that we have within our judiciary. And to also lament that in spite of this, there is still a gulf that needs to be covered. Of course, as Kwiku said, I don't think that you say that because your working environment is not good, you go and deliver crooked justice. You should deliver justice according to the law and to ensure that the people of this nation get their sense of justice rightly positioned.
Okay. Eli Klim says that the Second High Court is a very beautiful and nice edifice, and the residences of the judges also excellent. Now, Nana, the Ghana Bar Association, they are looking beyond just the outward or the aspects of what they are complaining about. They are talking, for example, about the security of the court's documents being compromised, lack of appropriate storage facilities. You may have heard over and again dockets getting missing, dockets getting destroyed because rainwater, is destroyed them, and perhaps someone who would have gotten speedy justice is spending a year or over simply because of some of these matters.
Yes, Samson, it's all part of the neglect, the picture of neglect that the Lawyers Association have painted. When we're talking about the weeding and overgrown weeds and grass and so on, I remember yesterday I was driving along the ring road between Dankwa Circle through Laboni Junction to the T Junction. The median, the middle portion of you could have grass cutters in there. In the middle of Accra, totally overgrown, in the middle of Accra. There's obviously somebody's job to ensure that the situation is not like that. That person is not doing their job. So,
is this the right way for the Ghana Bar Association to communicate this report, what they have gone to see? Is it the right way to communicate it? Should they have just, secretly or privately dealt with the judicial service and probably gone to the government or to parliament and asked for the things they are asking for? They are saying the government should deal with it as a matter of urgency, get parliament to raise the internally generated fund, the percentage that they get from 15 to 75%, and the funds that have not been released be released immediately.
Well, they could have, in their own judgment, written a memo, a quiet memo to Parliament and a copy to the presidency and copy to Parliament and so on. They chose to go public. I don't know why they chose to go public. But obviously, the matters being discussed are huge public matters. Any matter affecting the judiciary is a matter of major concern to governance and so on in this country. They chose to issue the statement to the public as well. I'm surprised that my friend Amaliba's take that the toll, if you look at the toll, and it seemed to be targeting the NDC government. Where is that coming from? What did the GBA say? They said that the conditions are deplorable. And all of us agree that the general conditions are deplorable. Something is being done. So improvement here and there on court premises, judges' accommodation, and so on.
He's saying that they should know the current predicament that the economy is in and take account of that as well. But to act as though they are unaware completely of that situation is not fair. And again, he says that they should also acknowledge that there are permanent solutions in place. The whole of the Cocoa Affairs area, you have seen the new edifice that is, rising.
He's a member of the GBA, so he can speak on GBA matters inside GBA more than I can do.
Point that you are surprised at me.
Now,
turn it to GBA.
I am surprised at you still, because you sought to, from what I get from your submission, that you sought to accuse the GBA of deliberately trying to run down the NDC government. And that's my view. That is terribly unfortunate. Because looking at the statement, they sought to point out the difficulties, the inhumane conditions affecting the judiciary. That's what they sought to point out. And then they have pointed out some causes
And he's saying
the money's
he's saying that this lack of recording facilities and the frustration of having to write in shorthand and whatever, all of that, they are not new. He's been used to them over the years. You want to apply to the court for a simple record of proceedings, which is just about maybe 2 pages, or just an order of the court, which is just an A4 sheet, only covers an A4 sheet, and sometimes it has to take you such a long, unbelievable time to get.
Samson, you are speaking longer than I'm speaking.
Yes.
So let me just flow. Okay? You are speaking longer than I'm speaking. Now I'm saying that, what has the GBA done? They've pointed out to difficulties. Are the difficulties real or not real? We all agree that they are real. And they have pointed out some causes. They said that funds meant for the judiciary are not getting to the judiciary. Number 2, even the quantum of the funds is a problem. That they are being given 15%. Even that 15% is not going. And that Parliament should try and increase it to some decent level. That is all that the GBA is saying. They pointed out to the difficulties. They've pointed out the causes. And they've pointed some remedies. How is this targeting one government? Because the conditions, whether they started from Gogisberg's time or whatever, there are conditions that are prevailing. And that is what the GBA sought to highlight.
Have they talked about attempts made to address the situation in this press statement?
So if
it is not balanced,
can I finish?
And that is my point.
Can I finish? The difficulties they mentioned, you say they are not balanced, because once they talk about the difficulties, they talk about the achievements. That's what you are saying.
That's what you also
that
know.
Is what you
know it.
But they are calling for improvement to the deplorable situation.
So
that's what they are doing.
You point at some improvements.
So, well, that is your view.
Good. So don't
My view is that the GBA...
I am also surprised at your statement.
Malva,
please let me do the job.
I expect you to be surprised. Hey, Amaliba, I expect you to be surprised. If you are not surprised, then maybe I'm doing something wrong.
Okay.
Now, I'm saying that you are unfairly stigmatizing the GBA. That, in your view, they are trying to target the NDC. I'm saying that is not fair. Because they've pointed out to general difficulties. They haven't been regime specific, have they? They haven't mentioned any regime. They say that these are the conditions prevailing. These conditions are deplorable. The general conditions there. And so something must be done about it. They've even gone ahead to suggest how the matter can be resolved.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. So you expect that government should respond to this with the sense of urgency that they are calling for?
Samson, I mean, the usual sing-song difficulties. If this the
GBA
judiciary issue is an isolated issue, but it's not.
So you're coming back to my point.
It is not. It is not an isolated issue.
You're coming back to my point.
There are deviations by government across every field of national activity.
Okay.
Across every field. I'll just finish. Special schools, they can't go to school because government won't transfer money. Primary schools, they open, they can't teach because government won't transfer capitation. Secondary schools, they open, they can't go because government hasn't transferred feeding grants.
Okay.
It comes across general malaise.
We can end this topic here. Okay. Now, let me read a few of your messages on the issues we've discussed so far. Pag Ganiu writes from Savlige, says, every day we Northerners bemoan the widening economic gap between the North and the South, yet it is our own attitude which breed the gap, and we cry for government to bridge the gap. That's what you wanted to say. I am deeply sad about this persistent and consistent negative publication about the North. Did you say negative publication? They are reporting what is happening. And then... Nana.
Mischief at its best.
And Hassan Malik says that unbalanced panel, this is not fair. Love and always listen to Newsfile, but unfairness is becoming too much. If you could be clear on what you mean by unbalanced panel, I will be grateful. Amoa Perez says, at Tamale Samson, the death of the Bimbilana is a tragedy to us. I remember the NDC made campaign capital out of the death of Fiana in Yendi. Some MP some MPs in Tamale were openly criticized for Kufuor's government and demanding answers. The NDC founder went further to say that he had a tape which captured the murderers of the Yana, blah, blah. Thanks for your message. Bernard Akwesi Frimpong says, Samson, it's amazing how your panelists discussed football objectively and patriotically, but some will debate important national issues with party propagandist view. We should discuss sports on Newsfile each week. Thank you. Kwejo Ansa Sesreku says that, hi Samson, don't forget 8 years ago we beat Czech Republic in US, who were ranked second in the and fourth respectively. Okay, that's Kukubako's point there. Thank you very much for those messages. Let me read Simon. Also in Walwali says, Samson, government should, as a matter of urgency, set up a non-partisan and professionally competent commission. They promised in 2008 to investigate the murder of the overlord of Bimbila. Okay, Kojo Kwashi is sending this from Agona Swedro, says, Ghana will win by a goal to nil. Al-Hassan Muhammad says that, from Nandom, says, Samson, I feel ashamed when I hear of disturbances in and around Dagbon. Haven't we learned some lessons after the murder of the Yana? When are we ever going to learn? I feel ashamed as a Dagomba. You don't identify yourself, but you say this match is a difficult test for the Black Stars. But inshallah, it's going to be a win in favor of Ghana. Ghana 1, Germany 0. Ali in Yendi says the overlord of Dagbon was murdered and nothing happened to the murderers. That is why it has been repeated in Bimbila. The DCE should be held accountable. This one too, you don't identify yourself. You agree with him that the DCE should be held accountable? I agree. Oh, I don't understand that. Why?
The DC is the head of the district
secretary.
Yeah. And you've been reported to that incidents of this nature will happen. What measures did you take?
I see.
You should provide leadership.
Okay. This other text that you don't identify yourself, please do. No one will come arrest you. Samson, when we smear our chieftaincy institution with dirty politics, the result is what we see in Bimbila. We have ignorantly allowed politics to eat deeply into our chieftaincy institution such that one could even kill for power. No reasonable investor would ever want to invest in a torn apart community such as what we see in some parts of northern Ghana. As a northerner, I am sad, and I think we need to live above these things and move on as a country, else we cannot develop. It's a shame and highly regrettable. Fuseni Atta says, Samson, point of correction. The man killed is a contender to the throne. Yes, I've said so. And not, overlord of Bimbila. Okay, well, the media reports widespread, referring to him as the overlord of Bimbila. Ibrahim Koppa in Tamale says, the NDC accused the erstwhile MPP administration of killing the late Yana. The principle of reversibility would be applied since the overlord of Bimbila was also killed in the NDC administration. Jerry Amponsa sends this from New York. He says, this unfortunate, gruesome murder of the Bimbila chief is a wake-up call over the security lapses in the security forces of Ghana. According to information trickling in, there was intelligence about the killing, but unfortunately the security forces totally failed to prevent it. The government must take this development seriously because we don't know what will happen next. Thank you very much. We'll take a break here. We'll return to look at the EC's call for the amendments of the law, probably to take away the requirement of no verification, no votes. We'll look at that and tie it together with the NPP that is currently being sued in the court for having done some illegal acts.